Jason, and it's great to be back in Adelaide. I don't come as much as I would like, actually. I always do thoroughly enjoy when I come here. Look, I thought what I'd talk about today is will we ever learn, was the subject that I wanted to cover. Because, let's face it, the mining industry is in deep shit at the moment. We've had a very tough few years, yet we are mostly to blame for it. And I don't think we are acknowledging that enough or doing anything about it. So that's what I want to talk about. Therefore, it'll be a bit controversial, as I've just said, we are the problem. But that's okay. Let me start off with a myth. And it's a myth which gets thrown at me by mining companies all of the time. It is that our industry is a price taker. That is wrong, okay? We are not a price taker. The price of our commodities are determined by two things. Demand, and I'll grant you, we don't drive that demand. But the other thing is supply. And all of us, all in the mining industry all around the world, we are the ones who determine supply. Our supply discipline has been atrocious forever, and I see nothing to change my view on that now. We are the ones who are helping to drive down the price, because the demand of our product has actually stayed going up. Not going up anything like as much as it was, I grant you, but still, demand is not going backwards, it is going forwards. The problem is we're oversupplying. So that's really what I want to focus on today, is the supply piece. And the lack of discipline, the stickiness of mines and how they continue on and what the ramifications of that are. So, let me do that in two bits. Firstly, let me talk about the old mines, and I'll talk about the new mines. Okay, that covers off most mines, I think. So, the old mines. They were wildly profitable in the years 2000 through to, let's say, 2013, 2012, 2013, all good. Then, new supply came to market, prices started going down. Mining companies had to look in the mirror and say, wow, through these good times, food has been too plentiful available and we've become fat. We have to go on a diet, we have to go on a diet very quickly. Now, as a generalisation, over the last couple of years, I reckon I've seen the average mining company reduce their cost base by 20%, which was taking fat out. Now, you can argue whether they should have ever got there and those sort of things, but it did, and they did take it out. Unfortunately, as a lot of the people in the mining services industry will know that they were attacked through that. We were as a firm as well. It wasn't an easy journey, but the companies needed to take that fat off. They have taken that fat off. All good, but not quite. And they're not quite is because as we did that, more new supply came to market. Prices fell by more than 20%. So, yes, we've taken 20% of the cost out, but we've gone backwards because prices have gone further down. So what do we do? So we are in an oversupplied market. We've done the first piece, which is the easy piece. Some call it productivity gains, I just call it taking a bit of fat. But we've done that, but prices still go down. So what do we do next? What we do next is we look at our mines and say, these are fixed cost beasts. We've got to reduce our cost per tonne because our revenue per tonne is coming down. We've already done the cost, can't do that. So what do? We produce more. So we are in an oversupplied market, and we in our industry think the right thing to do is to go and produce more. So what's that going to do? That's going to put more supply on the market, drive prices even further down. And we go back to where we were in the 1990s, when places like the Hunter Valley, we kept on driving our own prices down by producing more. So we're high-grading our resource, or we're being more efficient, using better productivity, whatever word you want to use, but we are the ones driving that price down because very little of our supply is leaving the market. In fact, worse still, we are expanding and high-grading and doing other things to get more there. We're actually burning our resource base for no profit. So we're putting it onto the market and driving the cost down. So as an industry, we have to take a step back here and think about what we are doing and whether there should be more production leaving the market or pausing and modularizing or doing other things. I don't know the answer to this, but I think that there needs to be an awful lot more work than I'm seeing going on around this area. How do we take supply out of the market? Because we do not need more supply, and all that we are doing is, as each year passes, we're going to just drive this down. So that's the issue with the old mines. We need to be a lot less sticky in supply. We need to find ways we can go. Now let's look at the new mines. which are coming on, and these are nice pieces. They got funded through the boom times, and we had a wonderful boom, and funds were easy to get. Now, my negativity about the new mines isn't actually about the new mines, it's about the process which we go through. And it applies equally today as it did in the good times. Other than today, you'll never get a mine to be built. What we do as an industry, when we are looking at whether we will go forward with a new project or not, is we put together a robust analysis which analyses basically the MPV, but a few other things with it, obviously. Take it to our board of directors, they look at it and say, yes, good year, and off we go. Well, sorry, before they do, what the directors will ask is, are you using consensus pricing? And of course the answer is yes, because who would not use consensus pricing? You'd be a fool not to. Let me just drill into that for a second, though, because in my 30 years in this industry, I've never seen a consensus price ever which takes into account the fact that we are a cyclical industry. Okay, the consensus prices start off today's spot price nearly always, and go up or down based on what we think the world looks like. So let me take today's date. Okay, we are as depressed as all hell for good reason. We have very low spot prices. Hopefully at the bottom, maybe go a bit further, but not much further. But consensus pricing today starts at a very low number, and because of the depression around the industry, typically either goes down or doesn't go up much. So only the very robust projects will get up today. Very, very few in the world today. So the problem is we're using consensus pricing. Yeah? Go back to 2011, where you had commodity prices which were at least double what they were today as a generalization. And consensus pricing therefore started double from what it is today. And we were looking pretty positively, everything looked great, blue sky ahead. So we had a scenario where most consensus prices started double where they are today, but actually went up going forward as well. So just about any project, good or bad, would have got approval in those days. So the problem actually lies in the fact that we're not putting into our pricing scenarios the cycle. And we've got to start doing that a lot more. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to get away with this at the bottom of the cycle. Because you go to a board of directors or a financier and say, well, the coal price is 60 bucks a tonne, but look, long-term price is going to be 90 bucks a tonne, so I'm going to start off at 90 bucks a tonne and you'll approve and give me the money. They'll laugh you out of the place. But what we have to start doing as we go up the curve, which will happen because we will turn from boom to bust, we've got to start saying, we mustn't just use consensus pricing. We must recognise their cycles. And yes, we may have a much higher spot price today, and that might be great, but by the time we bring this project on, we may be down at the cycle. So we should have in our 20-year analysis further ahead, maybe 5 good years, maybe 5 really bad years, and 10 in between. I've never seen that. So therefore, we build way too much when we're at the top of the cycle, and way too little at the bottom of the cycle, which is today. So that exacerbates the boom and bust. And again, we are the ones who are making that and driving that through. It's all based on good common sense, but it's flawed logic, because we've got to remember we are cyclical. So really that ends what I wanted to say on supply. I think that we have lacked discipline on supply. The old mines keep on cranking out too much, and there's not enough being taken out of the system. And the new mines, we just do not use the right methodology in how we go about putting together project costing, to don't take into the fact that there are cycles. So that's all pretty negative, isn't it? Let me now try and be a bit more positive. Let me look at the demand side of the equation. As I said, frankly, we've been cutting our wrists for the last couple of years in this industry, and it really isn't much fun. But demand hasn't been going backwards, okay? It hasn't been going forward by anything like what it was, but it has been going forward a bit. China has clearly been the key country for our demand, and continues to be for many years to come now. Joseph said be succinct and don't waffle on too much, and to be honest I could talk for 3 hours on China, and to properly understand what goes on in China you do need probably at least 30 minutes to an hour conversation, which I also don't have from now. But the driving principle of everything in China is making sure the party remains the sole political system. Okay, that's all the issues, and everything really boils down to that. The sort of unwritten rule that the party has with the population of China is you will become moderate, or you'll become wealthier with each passing year, therefore you'll give me the keys to enable me to do that. And the words which they use is, we will maintain social harmony by making you slightly richer each passing year. They've done it for 35 years. They've done it brilliantly, frankly, not without a few hiccups along the way, but they've taken 500 million people out of poverty, which is the biggest number ever in such a short period of time. And the country has changed tremendously, and obviously we've been a significant beneficiary of that growth, which has been great. But as early as 2003, 2004, they were saying and recognising very clearly that the early stages of their growth, they needed to build cities to let people come, build them, they will come, which they did. And they needed to build manufacturing plants to use the cheap labour, get the dividend and export the stuff off. That was great, but they needed to turn the economy to a more sustainable footing of innovation, domestic consumption, services, all that sort of stuff. So that was recognised, as I say, early 2002, 2003. And they started doing it then, but they had a hiccup when the financial crisis came, because their export markets disappeared, and they ran the risk of social harmony breaking them out if they didn't fix it. So what they did was throw money at the problem and overbuild on infrastructure. Now, the unintended beneficiary of that was the mining industry. And read further, the Australian mining industry, because iron ore in particular. So that was never done for our benefit, but we were the unintended, the innocent bystander who actually benefited more than just about anyone else when they did that. It was wonderful, actually, other than the fact it wasn't sustainable. And it was hard to see that, obviously, when you're in the middle of it, but as you get to the end, you see it a bit more clearly. But what they did do was, by doing that, they also continued on with their process of changing the economy around. And we're now at a place where their economy is very, very different today than it was even 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago. And it is a lot more driven by domestic consumption and by the services industry, and a lot less by investment. And let me just give you a number here, just so you can sort of understand this a bit better. As recently as the fourth quarter of calendar 2013, so October to December 2013, of their growth, 50% of that growth came from infrastructure and building. Houses, a lot, but infrastructure. So 50% of their growth 2 years ago. This year, the second quarter, this year, so April to June, of their growth number, which was a smaller percentage than it was in 2013, but a bigger absolute number than it was in 2013, only 15%, 1.5, was from infrastructure spend. So what they've basically done is they are growing comfortably, and they're not having to throw money to get that growth there. There's a bit that they are needing to, but ultimately, the only people worried about the Chinese economy today are people in the West. If you're going to speak to people in China, they are actually very comfortable about how their economy is going. Their growth rates, being much lower than they were, are still creating enough jobs and maintaining the social harmony with no great threat. So what they're able to do is take their foot off the infrastructure pedal, which unfortunately we are the innocent bystander here. We are being hurt by that. Yeah, but as I said before, I mean, we were the innocent bystander who got the largesse, and now it's been taken away from us. But that it is not because they don't like us, it's just they are running their economy in a far more sustainable fashion. So that's bad news for today, but let me absolutely assure you, I don't think Mr. Doom and Gloom so far, but let me actually try to be a bit more positive. You go to China, you travel around the place, the infrastructure is still, it's a very young country. The needs are nothing like finished by any stretch of the imagination. So anyone who thinks that the China boom has gone is totally wrong. But what has changed is the economy is not being driven in a fashion which just benefits the mineral sector. It is not on the slightest now. That's only one small aspect of the economy, and that can vary an awful lot more than we've ever known before. So we need to watch China very, very carefully. And I must say, I mean, having spent so much time as I have, and I love going there, I am amazed by how little actual knowledge the Australian business community has of what really drives China. and we do need to improve that, given the importance of China to so much of what we say. So that was a very quick run through China, but I would say short term, they don't need to invest in infrastructure too much because their economy is not in bad shape. We really want to seem to be worried about hard landings and soft landings. They are less so. They clearly know they've got to balance out their debt profiles, their housing positions, etc., etc. But doing what they're doing, they're creating enough of an economy growth without having to spend too much money, so they won't at the moment. It will come back. Undoubtedly, this stuff needs to be built. So the long-term demand for our commodities from China alone is going to be strong, but it's not going to be in the same way as it was before. Okay? Now, that's actually a good thing for our industry because it makes it far more sustainable and it can keep on going for many, many more years than it otherwise would have done. But short-term is a real problem for us. Add on to that, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, the industrialization of those countries which will need our commodities, we should actually be super positive about the demand side of the equation for our sector. But let me close up by saying that that's great, the demand side. Until we get the supply side under better control and start making more sensible decisions around supply, we are going to be the ones who kill the price and make it basically a profitless industry for the shareholders. It'll make lots of money for governments through royalties, it'll make lots of money for employees, but the owners themselves won't make much money unless we are a bit harder with how we make some of these decisions. So we live in a boom and bust industry. I do feel as if we are past the bottom, or at least near there, but if we don't have any supply discipline, we can continue to push it down even further, which I hope doesn't happen. The other thing I will say though is history says when it does bounce, it'll bounce quicker than we think it will bounce, and I do see a very bright future for our industry, but really do want us to focus very hard on supply. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions later. Thank you.